Neurological disorders are diseases connected directly to the brain, spine, and the nerve systems. There are more than 600 diseases based on neurological disorders, and one of the most common cases globally spread is epilepsy, with more than 50 million people worldwide infected. Epilepsy occurs due to an abnormal activity of the brain where a defect in the electrical signals arises in transmission. In other words, the brain endures a transient period of abnormally excessive synchronized activity. The disease severity varies from patient to patient, and it can go from unnoticeable to life-threatening. This project seeks to enhance the life quality of epileptic patients by enhancing the operation of a seizure onset detection system that uses the EEG signals. The aim of this project is to prolong the battery life to build an algorithm that works automatically to detect which part of the brain is enduring epilepsy seizure, and so it can activate and record the sensors as needed, in addition to building an iPhone application that could be easily used and notify the patient before the seizure spread.
Very simply, the word epilepsy means somebody who has more than one seizure. And the seizures have to be something called unprovoked, meaning there isn't like something in the brain that's causing seizures, like a tumor or bleeds or something like that. So if they have just one seizure, we can't call it epilepsy, but if they have two or more, then we call it epilepsy. And to make it relevant, a seizure is essentially electrical activity in the brain that's very synchronous, so it's organized, and that is abnormal for the brain. The brain usually has dissynchronous activity, so the fact that it becomes synchronous, it builds up in amplitude and then eventually it decrements, and that manifests as sometimes jerky movements and sometimes other things in the body. So if that happens more than once, it's epilepsy. So what is the percentage of epileptic patients in Qatar? So it's probably a little bit higher than most of the world, but it's only because there's a lot of people who are immigrant workers and things like that. But I would say there's probably around 1% or less than 1%, maybe 0.5%.
If the patient doesn't have any other problems or any focal abnormalities on examination or any problem on the imaging studies, or the EEG studies doesn't really show abnormal EEG, there's a very good chance that they may not have a seizure ever again. And for this reason, many epileptologists or doctors, neurologists may not give or commit the patient to a long-term treatment with anti-epileptic drugs based on one unprovoked seizure. They probably wait till the second seizure, if it ever is going to happen, then the diagnosis of epilepsy may be applied, and then they start them on medication. Now,
I got diagnosed by epilepsy 2 years ago. It's hereditary, my father had it, and also I have pseudotumor, which is extra water in the brain. This is also a factor that may cause epilepsy in some cases. I would have to rate the intensity of my seizures at a 5 or a 6. I realized that I might have a seizure maybe a minute or two before having the actual seizure, and I start losing control maybe a minute after that, and I lose fully control of my whole body to the point that I would actually fall down or something like that. At this moment, I don't actually use a seizure detector device. I used an EEG a couple of times, but that was only for a day or two. But I don't use a regular daily seizure detecting device. I would actually like to see a system that alarms people before I have a seizure, because this could help cut down on the amount of harm that I get during the seizure if I get to the hospital faster. Yes, I would use this technology because there have been a couple of times where I had a seizure and I was alone. And if I had this technology back then it would have given out an alarm and people would have come to assist me. And I would not have the harm to my brain that I have now. I believe that this technology should have an extra feature, which is that it should be able to have a communication with the nearest hospital, that if a certain time period passes, it should be able to communicate with the nearest hospital to come and take me to the hospital because, well, no one helped me.
The early detection of the epileptic seizures helps patients take the emergency measures before the seizure occurs. Our device will be provided with a phone application for the patients to stay updated about their condition. The EEG-based seizure detector works on minimizing the consumed energy of the sensors to prolong the life of the battery as well as decrease the latency. The detection methods will consist of two main stages. The first stage represents the feature extraction, where the relevant features are extracted from the EEG signals. After signal recording, the wavelet transform method is used to categorize the incoming EEG signals into different frequency bands, that are gamma, beta, alpha, and theta. Because the EEG signals are sensitive to outliers, the extraction of the subband signals will be based on their energy that is provided by the common spatial pattern. Another method to extract signal is by using graph analysis by measuring the variance of each channel. The second stage is the classification stage, where the signals in the first stage are classified into two events, seizure or non-seizure. The classified signals will be trained through a qualified program that will read directly and categorize automatically the signals from the patients. These tasks will be carried out by employing machine learning tools and concepts and by using MATLAB. After implementing the system, it will be tested thoroughly to check the signals labels and overall system performance in terms of detection performance and error rates.